Hello, hello.
Hello.
How are you? Yes, ready for module 3. We are gonna go over because I know we ran out of time lesson. So review our line information
Okay.
so we get that sense of what we're grounding into. So that'll be better
Okay.
to be able to do that. Let's get started with just the method so we can anchor in a little bit and remind ourselves of the steps.
Sure.
Hola, getting
Oh.
ready to do some umans. I made it up all by myself. All right. So breathing all the way out, relaxing into the seat of your chair, sit bones, feeling them where they meet the chair, sinking through into the earth and breathing back into the lower belly, below the belly button, and just letting the body move, even with the breath out for the next one. So if there's any swaying, let that happen. You're really just noticing kind of how different pressure shows up on your body as the breath goes out and in. That's also good. Breathing back into the lower belly, letting that move your body. And if you notice anything that wants a little bit more movement, that's a little bit more tense, then let that move too. So I like to move my arms and stuff. One more breath, full breath out through the perineum, deep into the earth. Breathing back into the lower belly. Just noticing the parts of the body that get all that yummy warmth after all that good breath movement. And then, so we'll just go into our ma. Well, we'll do it a little different. I'm just hearing it different today. So it's about the same, but we're just going to go through all the vowels today. Okay. What I love about doing that is that you get a sense of how each vowel has its own sense vibration and they all feel a little different. They all have their own little medicine. So when we spend time feeling that back to the body, we get to understand what that medicine is and when we might need it or when somebody else might need it, right? So the vowel order is o a e I u. Pretty sure that's how it goes. Om mem mim. Okay. So whenever you're ready, breathing all the way out, letting the body drop, be heavy in the chair, breathing back into the lower belly, letting those M's vibrate as we say. Om what? I messed something up. Om no, I think I was right. All right. So I really I literally kind of go to a different place. That's why a lot of times my eyes are closed and not actually fully closed. I'm just kind of seeing back into my own headspace, right? It's just something that I feel first. So I feel like a vibration in my head from all those M's and all those vowels. And then it just centers me right in the middle of the head, so more towards the back. Sometimes you just think front of the body because that's what we see the most of, right? So again, breathing all the way out, breathing back into the lower belly. Om. Just notice how short my externalized sound is. mostly for me, right? It's mostly that M vibration with the vowel happening back into my body, right? So it's really very similar to the ma sound in that that vibration is what gives us a feeling of just physicality, that our bodies are here and vibrating. And just going through more vowels gives us a more range of what that means, right? So let's do our parameter one. So we'll do a few poos and a few or ahs. I'm sorry, I always get that up here. So we're gonna do poos first, and again, let's let that be right at center and relax. So poo. So that ooh is right when I say this ka. I know some people have heard that already, but if you say ka, you'll feel the vocal cords come together, right? And that is center. And what will you often notice, especially if you have that nice full breath out, ka, just let that drop, sit bones from the chair through the earth. Ka. Just notice how far back that relaxation down is at the vocal cord, right? Ka. It's super low, way lower than we think. We're always thinking our voice is like somewhere up here or out our face, right? But the central instrument is between these two bones. If you have like these little round bone things that come off of your collarbone, then it's back there, right? So let's do that one more time. Ka. Just letting all the air out, letting it fall where it is, wherever it comes out is fine. And then we're gonna let our poo, our ooh, start there when we release that breath completely, right? So ooh behind P, poo. And just see what happens. And let go immediately. Poo! Already through the earth. It's faster than we can perceive. If we like put it on a little railroad track and ran it down into the earth, it's way faster than that, right? It's immediate. Whew! And just see where it lands one more time. And then we'll do some ha-has. So the ha-ha is the poo is to remind us how easy it can be, that we can make a sound and it can be clear, it can be lovely, whatever, and it can be easy. And the ha-has are reminding us that all of those yummy muscles through our back, through our pelvis, through our belly, that are helping us make this happen. And that they're really doing the majority of the work. And the more that we allow them to do the majority of the work, the better off we are. This is important because we're going to get into cycles today, and that is a big component of how cycles work as well. We have to know how it works when we set up an intention and how things are supported. And it's always by kind of this dynamic that happens in a movement, yes, in from ourselves, but not because we made it, right? So when we do the ha-has, we're trying to get that feeling of laughter and getting a lot of belly movement, like a big Santa Claus, right? Ha ha ha. That's how I like to do it. Ha ha ha. Like the big belly. Ha ha ha. How fast can I drop it back into the earth? Nice big ah at ka. Ha, ha, back there, yeah. Ha ha ha. Right? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do something that's different. Like we're gonna do is absolutely opposite from ka. We're gonna do something that's out in the face, and we're gonna throw it out this way in front of our head, this way. Okay. So I go, like just try to throw it out the front of your forehead somehow. You see how little your body feels that? So little, right? Like it has because there's no alignment. And this is often the same thing we're running into when we're speaking because we're trying to please people and we're out here, right? We're trying to, I'm nice, I'm whatever you want them to think, right? And so when we are here, then we just are, right? We are just, I am nice, so I'm going to say nice things. It doesn't necessarily have to be proven, right? So when we bring that back into center, back into alignment, mom, you get a sense of it. So you get a sense of who and where you are, and they get a sense of you. Mom. Yeah. So it's just, and you notice how calming that is, that you're not trying to, right, spastically do all the things. We're just here and we may do some things, right? It's a big difference that I want you to take away. And then what we'll be doing for the, our, intentional exercise will be our lines today, okay? So let's go back and review what we think about our life's work and our evolution and radiance keys. We're looking at what those lines are kind of activating for us. Do we have a sense of those stories, those things that have we experienced in our lives that are correlative? That's my kind of big question because we did kind of come up last time of like how do we know how we help people? How do we know? Well, because we've already helped people, right? How do we know we can? How do we know we're going to be able to? Because we've done it before. And there's a way that we do it, that we did it before we knew we were doing it. And that's the easiest way, but the hardest to see and the hardest to value within ourselves because we can't see it. People see it in us, but we tend to forget about it, right? So, what we're doing here is letting that experience and that truth of what we've already done be enough and then hold it in high value, right? So, what has been percolating around these ideas? Let's start with the life's work. What's your line? And what has come up for you so far? You can raise your hand, you can put it in the chat. Susie.
Hi. Hi,
Hola.
Deb. I'm line one, which I found very interesting. Reading the description, I'm like, oh, it's so on point, of course, naturally. Um, Very interesting. The body's been likened to a temple. I could do much better at honoring my body lately, especially focusing on bone health. Aha, physicality, the bones. Um, But it's really interesting. Have a very physical life. I've always had work where I'm not tied to a desk. Very, very rarely have I taken on a job where I sit at a desk all day. Um, Balancing health and sensual enjoyment. I'm here to enjoy being alive. I call myself a hedonist, so I guess that's pretty on point.
I love it. Yes. Gotta feel life.
And so that's interesting too. I guess maybe part of the problem that I have had over the last several years when I've been, the portion of my business that I try to create online, maybe I'm missing that physicality and that presence with people. My massage business, I don't have a problem growing, but when I try to grow other aspects of my business, that being more remote work, maybe that's something that I'm missing. So I could be looking for more ways to be present and with people, but doing things other than massage. So that's my wheels turning in that regard.
I love that. I love that. It brings to mind the essences,
Mm,
um, just having like kind of the physicality of the product and in their space. Um, but also uh the feelingness of that. So what I was reminded of last week is that I tend to kind of make myself smaller for a smaller audience. And it's something that I learned honestly, like as a performer, because sometimes you're in a big room, sometimes you're in a small room, and a big voice in a small room is a lot. And I mean, I literally have seen people like kind of like brace themselves because of my voice. And so just being empathic, I'm like, ooh, I don't want to hurt your ears. And knowing how my ears often hurt, I don't want other people to have that problem, you know? And so I tend to like take it down, right? And but what happens is that when I do that in my energy as well, then I'm not holding the space for the potentiality that's coming either. So like having a physical sense of this the space that you're holding on when you're online, right? And like having, and when we do the omans and we do the vibration back to the body, that's giving you again that physical sense, right? And so if we amplify that, and then like and like yes, and like cue our imagination box, like I imagine people are here with me doing the same, right? And since I remember, it might be more than a week, but since I've done that, I've my numbers have gotten better on my videos. So I do think that is something that we have to pay attention to, right? That we're not like, well, maybe somebody will come and maybe I helped people, but maybe not, and that's okay. Like, well, that's kind of how I do it. But but like we want to hold the intention of where we were going at all times. How about you, Deb?
Um, well, um, I had one revelation just the past week regarding one of my lines that I couldn't understand before. Didn't make a lot of sense, and I thought, well, that's not me. That doesn't sound like me. And but as I got on to more about learning about it, just looking it up, we're talking about the life's work line, are we?
We are, yes.
Yes, yes. Okay. So the finding connection in solitude, that confused me for a bit, but that became more clear as I suddenly realized that it helps you sort of ground within yourself, more of who you are, what you want to do, where you want to go, where you want to take your purpose. So that's starting to become a bit more solidified or a bit floaty all over the place.
So I think you said that it's 05, you're in line 5 there?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And um so yeah, so like in what ways have you like what do you like to see done?
I'm not sure what you mean by the question. What? And
What do you what bothers you when it's not done? I already know one of them, right? Like you always have a beautiful space. So one of them is that you like things to be clean or orderly,
hmm
right?
yes, yeah, I do. And I've pretty much got my living space is pretty good, but it's my storage spaces that are just like if you went to the basement, the back 40 or the shed,
Yeah.
oh gosh, I've got all these boxes of things that I just can't seem to make up my mind about, and so I do have a lot of stuff in storage that frustrates me a lot. But
Well,
spaces, yeah, I'm always changing them, moving them, and switching things, and uh, I'm not sure if
yeah.
that's what you mean.
That's part of what I'm getting to.
Okay.
What about in like in working when you're supporting for the business? What was something that may bother you if it's not completed yet?
think it's frustration with myself if I put something off and then it grows bigger, either physically or in my mind. Um, so uh, this is hard.
So what I'm asking essentially is like, what do you like to see happen? Like, and like what brings you satisfaction, right? So part of what brings you satisfaction is having space in the way that you want it. And if that means that it looks a little full downstairs, then that looks a little full downstairs, right? Like, but the space that you prioritize, you have it a certain way, right? So you like to see things in an orderly way or in a pleasing way that's pleasing to the eye. Um, and and so when I go into like kind of what it happens in workspaces, I'm also looking at like, how do you feel like you've gotten the job done? Like what's satisfying about that? And for me, like it sounds very similar because you're like have like flip floppy lines here. So I have a 5 in a different area, and it's just that feeling like I'm not like I can't like I'm not okay. Like I like if I don't get a certain thing done that I see done already, then I'm just not gonna be able to let go of it until it is done. Like it's part of just the way it is. It's just, and then it used to be I would get so frustrated that I like lash out. Like Daryl would try to like interrupt me because he thought I had worked enough, or something like this, or was just ready for attention or whatever. And like I would like blow up because I was in the middle of getting it done. Right. So it's kind of those things that you feel like really energized to do. Like you just wanted, like, okay, I'm just going to do one more thing and then I'll be done. Right. And you may not feel that completely because you have that line 1 at purpose. So you're going to always feel like there's something else to do. But it will, um, it will be an indicator of how you help people to move into what's next.
Right. Okay. I think my
You're a
greatest,
5-1
yeah,
too, Susie? I don't know how I keep forgetting these things. You're a 5-1 too, Susie?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I from the module I opened up the purpose lines and I just jumped right into that. But yeah, my life's work line is a 5. So I guess I'm
Is
a
a
5-1.
You're a 5-1. All right. So it's very similar,
That's
right?
why
Like
we're
it's
birds of
something
a feather, Deb.
you can keep going because you're always motivated to do something else, but there's a reason why you keep going because you like it when it's done,
yes, yes. I think
right?
you asked me what fulfilled me, or I think what is the most satisfying is when I complete something, and the most important thing for me that I don't always do is the follow up. The follow up when you ask where you either get the Google review, or you get the testimonial, or you get the last thing done in the process, and you kind of put it off, or you just doesn't get done, and then that sits as a irritant because I haven't done it, and maybe now it's too long, the time has passed to complete that process, and then it sits there in my mind like an irritant, like, I didn't do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so perceptive. Yeah. Like, and that is a truth. So that's energetically a truth. That's why we want to have a way of like clearing the slate, right? Like when we've chosen to move on with something different, we want to let go of the things that we aren't moving on with. And that can be a practice, right? You can like literally sit with when you're doing the breath out and be like, I'm releasing everything that's not for now, and that, right? And so you can just be in a space of what you're working on. But yes, and that is the thing. Like, so what again is the meaty part of the transformation, which is the next piece we're talking about. So when you're moving from your evolution to your radiance, that is the shift from your 5 to your 1, right? So what happens is, right, like as you're doing, like I want to get this done, I want to get this done, and this is what I want to see happen. This is what I want to see happen. This is what I want to see happen. And then you get really frustrated because you can't see everything happen, right? That's some point in your evolution. There's a way that shows up for you in that shadow gift and city, right? So how that frustration shows up for you, and then how you shift into that's okay, I'll just get another thing done. So whatever the answer is for you, like how do you make that shift? What makes you think that's okay, I'll just do this other thing? Right? Because the pressure builds up in that evolution. It's just like, for me, it's the feeling of overwhelm, even if I'm doing it as like a voice exercise. Like it always feels like things are building and building and building and building. And then our challenge point or evolution just kind of like puts that pressure on. So it feels like if you stay there, it feels like you can't go on, right? That's the probably procrastination mode, right? And then when you are able to break out of it, then that's the ability to transform. So when you get back into the creating what's next. So what are some of the things that you like to say to yourself when that happens? Do you have anything that you say to yourself?
Oh, I often hear my mother's voice.
Yeah.
Oh, I miss her so much. Like just, come on. Like she was always about doing something. Like just don't sit there moping around or just, just do something. You're sitting there spinning your wheels and you're thinking, just do something. So I find that movement now, body movement, I find I'm becoming more physical. When I get stuck mentally, it helps me to do something physical to shift my thinking, or if I walk or I bounce or I move. So getting into my body physically, um, and then with that you get breath and movement, and that starts getting me back into action and focus and becoming calm again. Or I could just sit there and forever. Like, it's
I think we
embarrassing.
all have these moments where it's nothing, no one's escaping that here. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And again, like that point of transformation, like is that ability to help people to see their own point of change, right? Um, and so that's what we're looking at. And we're really talking about like the active movement of that thing in the line. It's how it's happening, right? The 5 is how it's happening is that you want something to be impacted. You want what you've done or what somebody is doing to make a difference of some kind, right? Like if you're going to do something, you want it to be effective. And you want, if somebody's putting out their effort out, you want it to be effective for them, right? And then the one, that action is the actual creation. It's like literally making something happen, literally making something happen, right? Well, maybe I can't go to Aruba right now, but I can make the bed, right? It's like as long as you're making something happen, you're pretty cool, right? So it's that ability to allow that to shift through the gift of the key. So what I want to look at right now is that transformation of the key of your evolution to the key of your radiance. So do you have that in front of you? And what I want to see is the shot, like let's talk about the shadow word for your evolution and the gift word for your radiance.
Are you asking for me, Monifa?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. The shadow for evolution is dominance. Dominance, oh gosh. And then the is it the city for the radiance?
It depends. Like I really connect with my city. So if you connect more with the city, then that's fine. But like sometimes it's easier to see the gift as the experience.
Okay. For radiance, it would be peace and diplomacy.
That's very, very interesting. So, so yeah, so the difference, I think, even especially when we're talking about 5 to 1, is that like I have to make it happen. To I I am at peace in the happening, right? And so I think that may be like, so does that sound familiar at all? Does that
Do you know, it's confusing. I confuse myself because it feels like some things sound like they yeah, okay, and other things don't seem to fit. And so it's a bit confusing for me. Um uh, and then I'm not sure if everybody is perhaps flighty in their personality where you can be different things to different people or different ways with different people.
That's everybody. Yeah, because that shot, remember that there's a repressive side to that energy and there's a reactive side to that energy, which isn't on the chart directly. But what is the key? And I'll tell you what it is. Of your evolution.
Evolution is 45. The line is 5.
So waiting on the machine. All right. So yeah, so the repressive is timid and the reactive is pompous. So it depends on who you're talking to, right? Like, so it has this idea of that essentially that you want to be able to, that you feel like there has to be somebody in charge, right? And that if it's not you, you get timid. And if it is you, you feel like you have to kind of maybe make yourself bigger. Does that feel at all familiar? Or have you seen that happen in your family dynamics at all?
Perhaps, yeah, more in family dynamics, but not so much around other people. No,
Yeah.
I tend to be more quiet around other people. In my family, it's quite different.
Yeah. And that's what we're recognizing, like, but both are parts of who we are, right? And for a reason, but that's the idea, is that like in some way it served you, right? In some way it served you to have this as a perspective, right? That it, like, in order for me to get this done, then I'm going to need to get bigger, whether that was in my emotion or in how I think or in relation to the other person. I might have to physically like take up more space in order for something to be done that needed to be done. Otherwise, you wouldn't have done it. right?
Right.
And then what that does is it gives you the perspective, like when you're not in that position, that other people have that right or authority, right? That they are the ones that get to be bigger.
Mhm.
And so you take the position of the timidity, right? So that is where we just want to recognize that, because that challenge comes up where it's like, okay, then how are we allowing that to shift, right? And then when we allow that to shift into a peacefulness of understanding that we are all one,
Mhm.
like how it allows you to relax to a place of just being instead of being bigger or smaller.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would work much better for me.
Yeah. So it's just like an idea, and but there's what's really beautiful about this is that you're already like, I bet anything your children's stories are along these lines. Like, yes, sometimes we have to protect ourselves, but that doesn't change like who we are, like, right? And sometimes you know, have to protect others, but we get to still come back to being ourselves or something that's along that line. Um, and I I think that's important, right? We want to teach children to be able to protect their bodies and their identities, right? Um, and so that's the thing. Then it's bringing it back to the one of like of they get to be themselves, right? They get to be themselves. So does that help a little bit, like having that understanding of that transformation and that it's been playing out throughout your life? That it's not just one instance, right? Like if I look at my transformation from what is it? um let's see if I can remember. Let's see if I can remember. Essentially, it's basically overthinking. So that's how I think of it in my head. So it's like if I go from this idea that I can figure it all out just by thinking, and to the idea of just being in joy and celebration around what is possible, right? I immediately know that feeling in my body. And I immediately know that I've been there at least 20 times in the last 24 hours, right? At least 20 times in the last 24 hours, I've wanted to overthink it and I've had to break into, let's just get excited about what's coming, right? And then all of a sudden the action flows from there. I don't have to really make myself do a thing. Whereas in that shadow, I'm always trying to make myself get it right, think, and think my way through it and make it work. That's kind of my thing. So, yeah, so like that's what we want to start looking at. It's like, how does this show up for me on a continual basis? And what happens when somebody's in your space, they automatically get this understanding. Oh, I've been trying to dominate something. I've been trying to make it like be forceful with this when I can just be myself. Right? I'm sorry, somebody's at my door and I have to like do this treatment to the house.
What do you think, Susie, about your keys? Do they sound like they align to you?
Oh, there we go. Um, it is interesting because in this regard too, between the evolution and radiance keys, I'm a line 5 and a line 1 also. Do they tend to be that way, Monifa? You're still muted.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
typical that those lines are the same between. Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. It's totally a real thing.
That's the way that
So
goes.
that's the way that goes. Yeah. And so what's your key there for like the shadow and the gift of the other one?
So the shadow of the evolution is control, and the gift or city of radiance is superabundance and expansion.
Yeah. Yeah. I like, yeah. I think even just your conversation about like your hedonist self, yeah, that you have a way of living life to the fullest that allows superabundance. And I think
Hmm.
what's interesting about this to me is that like I've been working a lot with the idea of shame and this like the things that we want to hide about ourselves. And and I think a lot of times we want to hide the parts of ourselves that we've seen do harm to others, right? And and so I'm sure you've heard this a thousand times, and then much better spiritual teachers, but like they have this concept of like embracing all parts of yourself, and that includes the parts we've seen in others, right? That we can't understand. Um, and so when that happens, though, it the breaks the chains of it only being a disservice, right? Like again, there's a service to being dominant in the right situation. There's nothing wrong with our shadows. You gotta remember that. There's nothing wrong with them. We just are in a place where we can't see what's right about it when we're there, right? And there's nothing wrong with control. There's certain times when we have to have a sense of control. If somebody is about to do harm to themselves or others, you got to get control of the situation, right? So allowing that to just be that understanding, oh, like I remember I have this superpower. And if we can remember, we'll remember how we've activated it in the past, where people have been in this idea that I have to be in control. You're in control. I'm in control. No, you're in control. No, I'm in control. Right? Like this argument of who's on top, and then you're like, you know what? We should get pizza, and like everybody was like totally broke out of it, right? And and it is, but like not everybody, like people, like somebody else without that gift would say, let's get to peace. And they'll be like, I'll tell you what we're getting next. We're getting salad because that's healthier, right? Like, but when you do it, people can break out of the pattern, right? And so when we recognize that as a superpower and we're like, oh, I don't want them to think that that they have to be in full willpower or something in order to have a sense of health or a happy life of feeling good, right? And and you're like, no, you can have fun. It can be fun. You can be happy and do the thing, right? And so that is the thing. And so what happens a lot of times is that we think, oh, that, that's not going to, people won't buy that. People won't believe that that's possible. And the reality is they'll only believe it if you tell them. They won't believe it for everybody, right? But they'll believe it if you tell them because it's a part of who you are. They already see it happening in you, right? So that's what's important about that. So when we get those understandings and we like, I like to think of as a plant, we plant them into the soil of our purpose. Now we have a sense of why we're here as an active value and impact. Like actively, not until you get the next thing done, not until, it looks like that when people tell you, right? actively right now. It's happening right now, right? So when we can tap into that in the present moment with our breath in a felt sense, that's the power here that we're working on. So when it anchors into that purpose key, let's talk about the purpose key. Um, let's do all three words for the purpose key. When you have it, just unmic or unmute. Tell me.
Okay, purpose key, city, gift, and shadow, compassion, humanity, turbulence.
That's here to shake some stuff up. Uh, yeah, the beauty of turbulence is change. The beauty of turbulence is that things must shift. And yeah, and that's this, it's the shadow, but that's the point. There is beauty in the shadow. Uh, uh, but what happens is that when we recognize how much humanity gets wrong, then we're in that turbulence of that shadow. And what happens is our attention to that is what amplifies it. And that's why it seems to happen more around us. That's the energy, right? But again, as soon as we recognize that, we have the availability of the gift of that humanity, right? And that humanity is just recognizing like that's the beauty and the tragedy of being human is that we fuck up like on a regular basis and we do horrible things on a regular basis. And if we can forgive that in others, we can forgive that in ourselves, right? That's the beauty of this gift. Yeah, and that we're still worthy of love, even though we're flawed. So in that line oneness, like how, like what it, like your idea for how you want to bring that as a service to the world is about like how do you help people feel like that's a possibility for themselves so they can love themselves despite their flaws, right? um Susie, do you have yours?
Mine is ascension, aspiration, and greed.
That's why I love your purpose key. I kind of wish I had that one, but that's fine. You can have it. So this is I guess that makes sense with the superabundance being the city on the other one. But yeah, that idea that there's no limit to what we get to experience. There's no limit, you know? There's no limit on how happy we get to be. You get to keep getting happier.
I get to keep ordering pizza.
You get to keep ordering pizza. Oh, that's right. Oh, no, that's right. I can be healthy and pizza-fied. All right, so I mean, it's true. I wouldn't have imagined it before, but now they have these wonderful cauliflower pizzas that I could not like literally fall out in scratching sessions after I eat, right? So we can have both. We can have both. Um, and so yeah, so that is a beautiful. So yeah, that whole read piece is basically there's like you never get enough. Again, that's that hedonist piece of like you never really feel fulfilled. But when we realize it's not necessarily in the getting that we're fulfilled, right? Because you're just gonna want something else. And that's true for everybody, but mostly true for you. Right? So if we stop thinking that if I just get more done, or if I just get more, then I'll be satisfied. Then we get to be happy because we're like, oh, actually, that's just something that I do. I want something, I get something. I want something, I get something. When we make that the norm, then you get to just be happy in the moment, right? So, and the aspiration piece is just that what we really want to be fulfilled with is the coming back to self, the full feeling of oneness in our spiritual selves. So that will never be satisfied as long as we're human, right? Because we'll always feel that one step from unless we move into a specific moment, like sound baths or like meditation or like massage, and something just like makes you feel like goo, right? And so those things are already happening. You're already doing it. How do you want to intentionally make it happen? Right? So we're remembering here. All right, so let's do our module 3 overview. I haven't put it on the calendar yet, but next week is our integration week, so we are not meeting next week. I know there's something on the calendar, but we are not meeting next week. um, and so I'll take it down. It's just not down yet. So yeah, so this is the time that we get to settle into how are we staking our claim in the change we create, why we are here, right? So the change is what we've been working on our whole lives, trying to get it together, what we are what we are in process of transmuting and transforming every time we breathe, essentially, like throughout the day. And then what is our stake in the ground? Like, I stand for more. I stand for abundance. I stand for the best you could ever feel. I stand for that whole feeling of peace. Like, you don't have to feel like you're on a battlefield the whole of your life. I stand for you getting to feel like you get to chill and just be who you are, right? I stand for that. It's your stake in the ground. Nobody gets by me without understanding that you get to be yourself. That's the way it goes, right? So that's what we're want to build into the vibration. And let's do our cycle work so we get to see when we make that stake in the ground, like how we are receiving and dispersing or transmitting or sharing energy. Okay, let me get my documents. Why is it showing me comments, but it's not showing me anything else? What you doing, machine? Did I make you freeze again? It's just like, it's doing weird things. Let me fix this, maybe that'll help. Something moved. Does that mean I get to go now? Yay! All right. So let me just go through what we have here. So what you'll be working on before we get back is needed change worksheet and all right. So that one is how we are recognizing things are shifting in our environments. Okay. The Gmail, I do. I use the Gmail for the drive. Yeah.
I was confabbing with Deb because she was asking where the calendar dates are. And so I was, if she has a Gmail, then if you open Google Calendar, Deb, you'll see the dates on that calendar. Even if you haven't populated anything in it, that's where Monifa's sent invitations. So you can kind of see them over there.
So Google Calendar would be where?
So you can just go to, what's it called? I think calendar.
Yeah, it might be. If you're
Yeah.
in that Gmail account, the way I describe it is there's 9 dots like a tic-tac-toe board in the top right,
Oh, yeah.
next to where you might see your initials or a picture if you've made an icon. And if you go to that tic-tac-toe board, then you'll find calendar. It's right there.
Okay.
Calendar.google.com is the web address.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so just go there, and if you're already logged into your Google account, it'll take you straight to your calendar.
Okay.
Monifa put the link in the chat.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
So
And then to
yeah.
find, okay, but then to find you there, how would I go to find you?
So you wouldn't find me. All you'll see is that there are dates that you're invited to. So they might be slightly blank, but you would have to click on it and say yes to say you're coming. So there are, when I say date, I mean like an event or appointment on the calendar. So if you look at today, it should have something at 10 a.m. on your calendar
Or
that
11
says
Mountain.
Vocal Alchemy.
Vocal
Or like,
Alchemy.
I'm sorry, yeah, 11th, where you are at your time that we started
Oh,
class.
it's she sent the invitation to your Yahoo.
Yes.
Oh, is that why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want it on your Gmail?
Um, yeah, if that'll, yeah, that
Uh-huh.
might get me caught up on where to find.
Yeah, because it's a little more complicated if you try to do it with your Yahoo account. Like I've tried
Oh,
that. It's a
okay.
little more complicated.
And the Zoom
So
link is right there too. So you can go to that calendar page and click right on that Zoom link.
Oh,
so
good.
just private message me to your Gmail one,
Sure.
and then I'll put that in there so that you can just have it right where you can see it.
Oh, thank you. All right. Okay. Appreciate it.
Yay.
Okay.
You're so welcome. All right. So the document, do y'all have like another 15? Will that get weird for y'all? Or y'all have to go
I'm afraid I should go pretty directly.
pretty soon?
Yeah.
All right. So that's
maybe 5.
okay. Like if you want to come back for the overview, you'll just know that it'll be at the end of the hour.
Okay,
Right?
perfect. I'll catch that. Thank you, Bob.
Okay. You're welcome. I will see you on the next one.
See you soon. Happy integrating.
Thank you.
Integrating. So yes. So need for change. This is where we recognize when we need to make a change. And this is also how we can recognize when the people that we get to help need to make a change, right?
Mm.
So how do you feel when something's off? Start to notice your signals and your symptoms of when you're not in sync with your feelingness. And when I say it's essentially if you've done the practice and you've gotten that feeling of like more energy, feeling a little bit more centered, a little bit more clear, then you're already there. Because if you're not feeling that way, then you're feeling somewhere else. And if you can recognize when that's happening, then you can decide to shift it by doing the practice. That's the hardest part, is when do we do it? How do we remember? And how I remember is when I'm in my shadow. If I'm feeling like I'm having the shadow experience of my gift, then it's time to reflect and come back to my body and come back to the now of what my potential and possibility is, right? Um, so for me, this looks like sometimes you detach or things get less interesting around you. So these are just questions to see if this may sound familiar to you and maybe a way that you can notice your sign of change, right? Do you feel like, feel it in your heart? Like, do you feel like you used to want something and now you don't necessarily care about it and you don't know why you don't care about it anymore? Do you feel it in your stomach? Does you feel like queasy or like crampy, or like you want to curl up in a ball? These are signals for in your body. So when we start paying attention to what our body's telling us, it'll start telling us when we can shift as well. right? It's telling us not, again, just like a symptom of illness, it's not necessarily trying to take you out, right? Like a symptom of illness is basically telling you that something needs to change,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's your diet or your sleep or your food. Like I used to that, but like, or you need help, you need further support from external sources. Maybe you need a little bit more vitamins or something more extreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same way. We're looking at those symptoms or signs of what needs, that something needs to happen differently. Right. So that's where you want to get a little extra space to put in some more of those signals. What areas of your body are the most common that light up? Like I have like a real persistent one here. Like if I'm fully energized, I'm fine. But if I'm getting tired, this is the first place that tells me. Like it's like this
Oh,
area of my shoulder, right? And then one of the translations for that is just taking too much on or feeling like everything's your responsibility. so, so that's one of my biggest indicators. And it's like, oh, I see. That's my pattern of thinking I can think through and make everything right.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So that's where you started making those, connecting those dots. We have better facility and resilience to, the faster we get back to that wholeness feeling that we feel we're getting warm and vibrating from our purpose and intention,
Mm-hmm.
then the more we can exponentially increase that possibility. Because right now our bodies are only used to so much. And it actually feels uncomfortable to feel a certain level of satisfaction or happiness or self satisfaction, like pride. It's uncomfortable right now. So we have to build up our physical capacity to feel that. And this is one of the best ways I know, right? So that's what's important about that worksheet. So when you sit down and do that for yourself, you get a better understanding of when you're actually reminding yourself to get back into purpose. And of course, we have our leadership quiz. This is really about like how do you see yourself serving? And so leadership looks different for everybody. And some people are there and they just want to make people happier and have more um, aliveness in a moment. And some people are like, no, let's go deep. And I want us to have a deep and transformative healing. And it's a different way of holding space. Right. So it's just one of those ways you can kind of see like what's my preference and what do I need in order to support that desire? Like what do I need more of in order to be more in my um, impactful leadership? So that's an important quiz. I don't think you can take quizzes like that too much because it just reminds you of what choices we're making on a regular basis, and then even shifts. So sometimes we kind of shift out of one way of seeing something when we grow and we evolve. And so we want to kind of know if that's changing. So maybe some other possibilities of showing up in leadership are being activated within us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have our breath cycles. So let me go ahead and share that one with you. So that's a breath cycle worksheet. So this is important um, as our phases of cycles. So let's talk about that a bit. So we have our breath cycle we're bringing up first because that's our voice to breath cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is, again, it gives us a better sense of how our bodies are doing and where we are and how do we feel when our bodies are doing the thing. So this actually comes from the pranic and the Vedic traditions. Well, prana is a Vedic tradition, and it's the awareness of breath. Okay. And so there's something that's called the up breathing. And so this is what I call when we are feeling filling up our breath from the bottom. So when we breathe all the way out, we get a natural sense of this. If we try to breathe and we already have like half our lungs or more full, and it feels a lot like this. We get no sense of our lower body, and it feels like it's somehow just here. Like the more we do that, the more it's just going to feel like up here. And then we kind of get that sense of, again, we practiced earlier of like being in front of our face and making things happen out here. Right. So when we are when you breathe all the way out, then we can, when we breathe in, have a very clear idea that it's this, oh, I'm filling up from the bottom. And it's very clear when we have that um, already empty and ready to go. And so when we have that understanding that it brings up energy from our power center and our dantian and into our heart. And so that happens naturally, just with the awareness of the breath and letting it come in the most optimal way and of efficiency. Then the on breath is when we do something with the breath. Okay. And this is the where we get into a sense of flow about that thing. No, so we're like, so we're breathing out, and we're on breath is initiation, is what I'll call it, whenever we're doing a vowel. So every vowel needs an initial vowel, right? So if we're speaking with that breath, it's going to be right when the vocal cords come together is the on breath. So it's a really interesting because a lot of people call these, if you're doing breath work, they're going to call it a pause, like nothing's happening, right? But something's happening. You're just not supposed to do anything about it. It's an automatic action as a part of the start of the cycle of breathing. Okay. The out breathing is when we're actually in the flow of what we initiated. So, when we're taking that time and really letting that flow through, that is that feeling. So, what's important about this again is that we're recognizing, how do I react? Do I tense up when I'm trying to breathe in from the bottom up? Do I somehow kind of like, do I have enough breath? And we're just tensing up there, which I've seen happen. Like people like immediately switch into thinking brain and then they never finish breathing, right? And so we all have patterns of where we tense based on trauma, based on the way our bodies are physically made up. And so if that's our pattern, we want to know, I'm tensing when it's time to feel fulfilled, right? On the on breath, if we're tensing just before we say that intentional sound, or just before we do that thing we're going to do with our breath, even in movement, we're going, and we're like, am I in the right position to make the sound that I intentioned? And like we're questioning that. That's where we're tensing up. We're questioning in the time of action. That can be one of the hardest ones because it completely discombobulates the body and there's like no alignment, right? And you just feel like you're just out there by yourself and you have no frame of reference of what's happening, right? So the out breathing, this is when we're actually in the action of what I call flow. This is when we're in the happening. And sometimes we feel like we have to keep making things happen, keep making more breath, more breath, more breath in order for us to do the thing, or more sound, more sound, more sound, or right sound, right sound, right sound. And we keep trying to do things when we're really supposed to be in a sense of release. The same way when we breathe all the way out. When you just drop that breath, it should be in the same form as when we are in our voicing. That's why the ma feels so good, because we just let it go. But as soon as we open up, we start to question because we have an initiation moment when the sound becomes externalized. And we're like, oh, is that right? Or is that where I want it? It's like, does that sound weird? We're questioning it. That's the initiation interrupt. If we're like in the middle of it, it was going fine, and then we're like, what's happening? Do I need to do something? Then that's our point of tension, right? And if it's when we release, okay, so this is something that we have to kind of feel. So we're going to go breathing all the way out. And we're going to do a big breath, big, loud ma. Ma. And then we're going to release that breath back to the earth if there's any left over. And then I want you to feel what happens on the back side of the body. Okay, you got a little cheat here on the worksheet, but if you go no, go right back to breath and see what happens on the back side of the body. Yeah. So what you'll find is that the back moves. It does this, but it's after the sound. It's even almost on the back side of that released breath. And so a lot of times we don't even recognize it's happening. But what it does, if we are in the middle of making a ma, and we try to control the end of that sound, then the back can't move and it causes a tension. There's no release. Not having a release causes more stress, more anxiety in the body. So we are not comfortable if we're having a hard time allowing that full movement of breath in the back and in the release. So even when we're breathing in, it's happening. We just, again, aren't paying attention to the back of the body. But now that we kind of are thinking about it, we might bring up some more awareness around it, right? So let's do it again. Ma. Just notice the warming in the lower back. And then as you release, how it moves, right? Let's just do a breath. See if you can notice the lower back moving, right? So when you breathe in, all of a sudden we can feel, oh, it just got lighter. It just did something, right? But that's happening all the time. So if we're not allowing that back breathing to be part of the cycle, part of the creation cycle, we're not allowing a full release. So we're having to hold on to that energy somewhere in the body, and it's causing tension and it's interrupting whatever we're intending. That's why release and forgiveness and those ideas are so freaking important. So again, we have exercises for that if you want to explore more of that. Ha, ha, ha. So that is it's going to give you more of that sense of the back. Ha, ha, ha. You see how much the back has to move in those big sudden movements, right? Water, that sense of water is going to give us a sense of flow. Oh, they have this differently. Sorry. Ha, ha, ha. So I guess that's more of initiation. So that initiation of breath. Okay. And then the back breath. Ah. And I guess like the correlation here for me is that feeling of vibration. Once we have awareness in the back, we'll feel that vibration in the lower back if we're in flow, if we're in that water flow. Okay. No. The more we have it in the back, the less we'll feel tension at our throat or in the body. Okay. That is where our support lies energetically, literally. Okay. Air, ease of breath. So this is just that poo, poo, poo. You make a sound and you don't feel anything. You barely feel the back move. You barely feel the vocal cords. You barely feel anything. It's just happening. Sound is happening. I don't know. It's just happening. It's easy. It's a sense of ease. And that grounded, stabilizing is that full into the earth. That's how I just love that feeling now because I can feel like all the anything that's extra or not mine is what I call it, uh, release back to the earth. And then if I make that a thought or an intention, everything that's not mine, release back to the earth with this breath out. and you can feel how the head actually gets a little, it feels like if you keep doing it. So I've heard people say this even on the ha 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 exercise, because you're moving so much breath, so much oxygen is coming through, they get lightheaded or dizzy, right? The poo too, actually, if you do that a lot, like through a whole song or something, then you'll get dizzy the first couple times you do it because you're just moving so much oxygen. So those are the things that we need to know, like about the breath cycle. I do think of it as the most important, but what you'll probably be more familiar with is the actual creation cycle. So we often think of that as the spring, summer, autumn, winter, right? So and that is something we'll talk about a little bit later when we're talking about how we're actually planning those phases of our cycle. This is more about breaking down a two-part cycle into something that we can track movement in, right? Otherwise, we just think, oh, I'm just breathing. And that's nice, but it's not necessarily informative and or awareness oriented or helpful because it's not awareness oriented, right? So when we have this kind of sense of, wow, my body's moving through this whole, and that's why I say let the body move when we're doing the breath out. Because like if we're letting that body move, the back can do the thing. But if we're just like, and we're just moving our belly because that's the only thing we're paying attention to, then it's tense. It's even more uncomfortable than if you just do the exercise, which is uncomfortable enough because it's grounding us into what we're not always facing in the moment, right? So let the earth take the stuff that we're not ready to face yet, and then we get to just be present to what we want to intention in the moment, right? So that's what we want to work on for this week. Getting the experience of what we talked about, your life's work, your transformation, your purpose as an experience in the body through the Omans method. And we'll start there, not next week, but the week after next. We'll start there with our opening exercise. We're going to remind ourselves of our energy and experience and gifts of our life's work, of our transformation, and of our purpose as we warm up for our class, our next class. Okay? So I will see you
Wonderful.
there.
Thank you.
So welcome. For now.